Good afternoon and welcome to the Startup Finance Quickbooks Troubleshooting presented by Startup Canada and Intuit Canada. Today's troubleshooting is the second installment of 3 online sessions during this year's Startup Finance Week. From September 28th to October 4th, we're joining forces with communities across the country to put national spotlight on the financial literacy of our Canadian entrepreneurs. Throughout Canada, communities are hosting startup finance events and workshops to connect entrepreneurs like yourself to the tools and knowledge your companies need to survive. My name is Rochelle Dezorsi, and I am the Online Projects Coordinator at Startup Canada, and I am joined by Program Coordinator Renee Tavares. Today we'll be co-hosting the 60-minute QuickBooks Troubleshooting. Startup Canada is a grassroots, entrepreneur-led social enterprise with a network of over 100,000 entrepreneurs across Canada. We set out on a mission 3 years ago to build startup communities and are proud to be supporting so many amazing community leaders with resources, networks, programs to help make Canada a better place to start and grow a business. Today, we are delighted to have Nevin and Elizabeth Sendel from Prevendel Business Solutions join us today for this session. Nevin is a chartered professional accountant and QuickBooks small business advisor with over 25 years experience in finance, operations, accounting, and much more. He will be guiding us through the QuickBooks troubleshooting this afternoon. For those of you tuning in via YouTube or Google+, you can type your questions throughout the presentation and we'll try to get them answered for you. So the hashtag for the event is hashtag Startup Finance. So anything you want to say or tweet or anything like that, just use the hashtag. So right now, I'd like to introduce you to the man of the hour, Nevin Sendel. Over to you, Nevin.
Thank you very much, Rochelle, and thank you everybody for joining us. I'm going to put us into share screen mode so that everybody can see my computer as we go forward. Also, here's contact information. I'll leave that up there for just a few seconds. You've got my cell number, you've got my email address, and you also have an offer there from our firm. Whenever we do presentations, we put it out to the listeners that if you are a home-based business or if you have a home office and you're looking for a reminder spreadsheet of everything that you can potentially write off for, as a business expense, you're more than welcome to send us an email. We'll be happy to get that spreadsheet out to you. So let's grab our QuickBooks sample company. For those of you who are joining us today that were on the call yesterday, thank you very much for coming back for the advanced session. And I want to thank everybody that sent in questions ahead of time. That certainly helps us out a great deal. So first off, I'm just going to take you guys down to sales tax. One of the things that we wanted to note about QuickBooks is if you need to add tax, because out of the box it comes with HST, but if you want to add other sales taxes because you're multi-province or you're selling into the States or outside of Canada, it's the sales tax tab right here. Then you're going to go to new tax, and you can see there's a number of options. You can set your own tax if you like, but you can take here sales tax for another province or territory. Then you've got selections. So for GST, for the 5%, you're going to take the GST and you're going to say done. And that will now give us, just let it go through its iteration, that will now give us an option to have GST along with HST. Do be careful when you're using the automatic sales tax for another province or territory. So for example, if you were asking for British Columbia, well, certainly you'd need the HST first, but when you ask for British Columbia, now the system automatically thinks you're asking for provincial sales tax and you need a registration number, your file frequency, etc. And it will set up a separate GL account. Whereas now that we have added our GST, that will find its way into the GST/HST account. Let's just go back to chart of accounts here. That will find itself into this account right here. Okay, both the taxes will go there. Another quick handy item, Control-Alt ? or /sign. When you do Control-Alt ? your company ID pops up. So if you're calling for support to QuickBooks, they'll usually ask you to have your company ID. This is your ID for your software. It also provides you handy shortcuts, as you can see. So if you'd like to use the mouse less and less, and you prefer to have quick strokes on your keyboard, that's how to find it. Control-Alt ? So just make that note, and you'll have a little bit more items to play with. Also here, we've got the rotary wheel and we've got the question mark as our normal methods of getting around. If we go to the rotary wheel and we drop down to Audit Log, Audit Log's an interesting part that most people don't go into, but you can see everybody who's logged in, when they logged in, when they logged out, what work they did, everything's there, all the history. You know, if you happen to hire a bookkeeper, let's say, you'd be able to see, you know, just how often that that they're working on your books, and when they're logged in, when they're logged out. If somebody's working from home, you can see the same thing. So it's a nice feature that they've built in. So again, we're going to go rotary wheel, Audit Log. You're going to have that access. The other quick tool that I wanted to show the advanced group as well. You know, let's say you're working on, you know, your chart of accounts, and you want to go and you want to navigate to other areas. And, you know, coming from the desktop world, we're used to having multiple windows open all the time. And, you know, how do I do that with the cloud? Because people, you know, most of the people I work with, I'm always seeing them navigate back and forth and back and forth. Well, you can go right up here. You can do a copy paste. So I do Control-C. I open up a new tile at the top. I go Control-V. I hit Enter or Paste. If you're not a Control-C, Control-V kind of person, then it's just copy-paste. And now you can see me toggling between, you know, two different tiles. So I can be working on a supplier account specifically, and then I want to go back and see how I hit the GL. I can do that by having multiple tiles, and I can have 3, 4, 5 open at a time. The one caveat about multiple tiles is you have to be in the same company at the same time. So let's say you work for a company that has 2, 3, 4 different companies. You can't have 2 or 3, 4 different companies open simultaneously. It's only the one company that you're working in, and you can have multiple windows for them. So we thought we would show you that. Then we're going to jump into some questions here. So the first question that we received was, I added a credit card feed, and I don't understand the equity transaction, the equity opening entry. Should I just delete it? Okay, so let's take a look at our home, and of course, in this sample books, we've set up checking and Visa card. Now we know they're automatically connected, but not this bank account, because there's no bubble and there's no number in the bubble. So if we've got no round circle beside it, it's not automatically linked. We're not getting the automatic download in. So in this case, we have a credit card that is linked, and this is information that has not been processed into the account yet. So if we go back to the chart of accounts, and we go into the credit card, and of course, you know, designated by attachment, we can find real quick because we got the arrows pointing back and forth. We're going to go into the account history. And there'd be perhaps a lot more transactions in your business. This is just a sample company. So I think the question referencing is with regard to this. What we see here, let's actually take a look at that entry. We can call it up. We can edit it. Take a look at it specifically. What happened here was, and this often happens, you know, if you connect a credit card to QBO and you haven't used any, you haven't had any transactions yet, and what's happened is that, you know, as soon as you've downloaded it, you're getting fresh information. It's starting with a zero balance. But if your credit card already has a balance, when you add it, you're only getting the historical 3 months. And then before that, any balance that's there, the system creates an automatic entry, and they arbitrarily send it to opening balance equity. And the reason for this is when you go and you do your credit card reconciliation or your bank reconciliation, the same thing can show up. The reason this is done is so that you can complete your reconciliation. But the reality is this has no meaning for us, an appropriate meaning for us from an accounting standpoint. So how do we get rid of the 383180? Well, if I have copies of all the transactions, okay, if I have copies of all the transactions specifically for the 383180, well, I can go here and I can go to expense and I can enter them all in. I can pound them all in until I've got the 383180 in there. And then I would just come here and delete the entry, or go into it and delete the entry itself as though it never existed. Because I'll have my 383180 there, no problem. The other alternative is let's say this was my personal credit card that I added and it had no bearing on the business itself, or perhaps as a shareholder I had already put all the cash expenses into the business from my credit card before I attached the credit card. So if I accepted these entries now, I would be duplicating, and I don't want to duplicate my entry. So I could also go in here, edit it, and obviously if I had personal expenses from my credit card, we probably would have put it in as a journal entry, and we would have credited the shareholder loan. So what I'm going to do with this entry is I'm going to move it from opening balance equity, and I'm going to move it to the shareholder loan, because I don't want it in opening equity. There we are, shareholder loan. And I'm just going to change it right there, and I'm going to say save and close. The saving and new keeps me, in the same area. I don't want to do that. So I haven't changed anything other than I've gotten rid of the opening equity and I put it to shareholder loans. But that's what's causing that opening equity transaction that you may not want, and that's how to manage moving it. So again, take the old entries and put them in and get rid of the entry altogether, or perhaps move the entry to shareholder loans if it makes more sense for you. What's the next question we have here? I realize that QBO safeguards our data, but should I still back up my data? And if so, how? Okay, very good question. Certainly when we're working on desktop, it's best practices to back up our data, and we do it offsite, et cetera, et cetera. Now, everything's very safe in QBO. We've never had a loss of data issue at QBO, and there isn't a concern. However, a lot of us out there are worried about backup, and we'd like to have another backup somewhere else. That's fine, in case the absolute awful ever happens. So we can go to reports. We can go to all reports. So when I hit all reports, I'm going to go down to accountant reports, and I'm going to look up general ledger. Okay, so again, all reports, and when you come into all reports for the first time, you're going to toggle down the left-hand side, accountant reports, toggle down general ledger, and then if I'm at my my fiscal year end, I can just say last fiscal year. I can go last month if that's what I want. But this is my entire GL. These are all the entries that were made. So what I can do with this now is I can export it to Excel. I can certainly email it to my accountant, but I can export it to Excel. And then once I have it in Excel, I have a hard copy and I can back it up in any way that I want. So I would certainly recommend, if you want to do monthly backups, semi-annual, quarterly, annually, whatever you want to do, take your GL. That's the best way to back up your entire data, because it's got all your transactions there. Next question: How do I get back a deleted account? Okay, how do I get back a deleted account? Let's go back to chart of accounts. So all the accounts that you're seeing right now, the view that comes out of the box, if you will, the view that comes out of the box is to only show you your active accounts. So anytime I terminate an account, so let's just take prepaid expense, and let's just make sure we have no account history here. We don't. Okay, so I'm just going to go back. Where are we? Prepaid expense. I'm going to say delete the account. Yes, I want to delete it. So I've now deleted the account, and out of the box, now I don't see prepaid expense anymore. It's not there. How do I get it back? There used to be a tab at the bottom, but different times we get different updates and things move around. So we're going to go to the mini rotary wheel. Not the big rotary wheel at the top, but the little mini rotary wheel here. And this changes the look and feel of what we see for our chart of accounts. So I'm going to now click off Include Inactive Accounts. And when I click it on, my prepaid expense account comes back, and you see it's got deleted in brackets. So now I can at least get into, just going to get that out of the way by clicking it a second time. I can actually double click anywhere on the line, and I can see whatever entries happen to have been in there prior to deletion. Or if I want, you know what, it was a mistake, or I want to make this account active again, I just simply click on Make Active. Now keep in mind there's other accounts that were deleted, and we see here this inventory account was deleted. Rather than risking making it active again, I'm going to go back to the rotary wheel, and I'm going to say, you know what, don't show me the inactive accounts. I don't want to accidentally bring one back in. While we're on the topic of bringing back deleted accounts, I'm also going to take an opportunity just to talk quickly about merging accounts. There is a merge account option. You can certainly go to Help. It's great, and there'll be some quick tutorial on how to merge accounts. I just want to caution the group on merging accounts. You really need to know what you're doing and have a comfort level. Any mistake that you make can just multiply your issues. What I do recommend, let's say you want to close one bank account, open another bank account, I would just simply complete your bank reconciliation, transfer that balance into the new account that you open, and then make inactive or delete, because you never delete an account completely, they just go inactive. Then delete the bank account that you no longer use that's reconciled, rather than merging accounts, to have history. And any deleted account that does have history in it, when you're calling up a report, if there's data in that inactive account, it's still going to show up on your report. It'll show up as a deleted account with information beside it, but it will be there because it had transactions in the fiscal year or fiscal period that you're asking for a report on. So no worries about that. And sometimes it's a better approach than merging. But one man's opinion, whatever works for you guys best is what to use. But I've seen some people pull their hair out after merging accounts. So word to the wise. What do we have here? We talked about that one already. Okay. Transfer funds okay, so I need to transfer funds. I have a Canadian and US bank account. I need to transfer funds between each, but I get confused as to the currency that I need to use when using transferring funds. I'm okay on journal entry, but the transfer funds function puzzles me. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Transferring funds, we're going to go to the plus sign, and under Other, we see Transfer. This is the transfer funds functionality. Normally, it's between bank accounts, or you're paying from your bank account to your credit card account. That would be another common use of this, rather than going and paying a check to them, so on and so forth. So if you're doing an e-payment on bank or a transfer of funds, you can transfer to pretty much any of your GL accounts. So it's good functionality to use the transfer. It's really quick. But the question before us is, I have a U.S. bank account and a Canadian bank account. So let's say I'm moving. I don't know. We're going to move $1,200 from. We want 1,200 U.S. So we want 1,200 U.S. We know we're moving 1,200 U.S. And the reason I'm saying U.S. is whether your U.S. bank's at the top or your U.S. bank is at the bottom. So whether you're initiating a transfer out of your U.S. account or you're receiving it in, this amount, the software will consider it to be U.S. dollars automatically and every time. This becomes a U.S. transaction, not a Canadian transaction. So we have right here our software on a daily basis provides us with the exchange rate. However, that exchange rate may not match what the bank was offering us when we transfer the funds. And if the bank tells us it's 1.31, then I have to correct this to 1.31. I'll tab out of it, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change the date. Let's say it was September 3rd, and you're going to see that once I tab out of that, it changes my exchange rate again. So let's go back here to make it 131. Okay, now when I tab out of that 131, I get this message, and no, I only want it for one transaction. I do not want to change for that date or going forward. This is a unique transaction, and I'm telling the system that I only got 1.31 from the bank on it. So I hit OK, and I hit Save and Close. So here's actually a good reason perhaps why we should be using two and toggling back and forth. If we wanted to, use the different areas. So now we're going to go look at Bank USD. We're going to take a look at account history. And the account history, here it is. Here's a $1,200 transfer we just did. So we said we got from the Canadian account $1,572, and we got $1,200 US because it was at 131. That's precisely what happened going one direction. Now we'll leave this one up. We'll go into our other tile and remember what we said in order to do that. In case anybody's just joining the call late, Control C, open up a new tile, Control V, paste it, and we're going to do a transfer. And the last one was September 3rd, so we'll do one a little bit later. Let's say, transfer. So now we're going to send it back from the US account to the Canadian account. And again, the currency is US dollars. So we're transferring out $500. This isn't 500 Canadian, it's 500 US leaving the US bank and dropping into the Canadian account. And perhaps, oh, hang on, we're going to change this, we said, to, let's say, September 16th. And I'm sure we didn't get a better rate from the bank, so we'll go a little lower. Make sure it's only for this transaction. We're going to hit OK. We're going to hit Save and Close. And I can go back to my other tile here. Well, this one's thinking. I can go back over here, and I can see I'm going to have to refresh to pick up the entry that just happened on the other screen, right? Or I'd have to go out and come back in again to the account. But here's the 500. So you can see that no matter whether our bank, right, when we were doing the transfer, whether our U.S. bank was in the first position or it was in the receiving position, as long as we were using a U.S. dollar account, immediately the transaction became a U.S. dollar. So either way, you have to understand that, be clear on that. Match up your foreign exchange with the bank's foreign exchange for that day, and I would always double check. Now when we're looking in here, we're seeing the bank US dollars, we're seeing it in US dollars. But if I were to actually call up a report, and here's just, we'll go a little bit beyond the question before us, and let's just jump into trial balance here. And we'll just do this year to date. And by the way, anytime you change your report heading, you always have to hit Run Report to have your report up here. Have a look at our bank US dollar. On this screen, we got 3,700. That's US dollars because we're looking at the US bank. But when I call it up on the trial balance, I call it up on the or on the balance sheet, it will always show me the base currency. So even though my account's called Bank US Dollars, I need to know that the 4742.65, that is 3,700 US dollars. It's always going to convert it into Canadian. And even if I drill down and take a look, here's the transfers. This all shows me the transfers in Canadian dollars. Because it's in a report fashion, it will always show it in my base currency. If I drill down further, now I can actually see the entry, and I can see that the entry was 500 US at a $1.30 or 1.3 exchange rate. So understand that even though you have US dollar chart of accounts, they will always be converted into the base currency that you're using. And of course, for anybody coming into this presentation afterwards, this is for the Canadian marketplace that we are performing this webinar for. So it isn't meant for it isn't meant necessarily for U.S. users or U.K. users or Singapore users or the rest of the world. So that takes care of the transfer of funds. Let's have a look here at another one. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, my online clients pay via PayPal and Stripe. So the funds received are always less than those invoiced. How should I apply? So let's have a look at that. We're going to go to customers, and let's just grab one of our customers here, Jordan Burgess, $452. So let's assume for the moment that the $452, let's assume we got paid, I don't know, $447. So we lost $5 in fees, probably more than that with PayPal and Stripe these days, but let's just say we lost $5 even in fees. So we're going to go into the invoice itself, and we're going to say, let's receive payment. Here's the choices that we have. We can certainly apply right here the $447 that we received as net, and that's going to leave $5 over, and then we're going to have to deal with the $5 afterwards, and you're multi-stepping your requirements, and I'm not a fan of doing things in multiple steps if we can avoid it. So one of the options is to fix the invoice before we actually receive the amount. So I'm going to go back into the invoice that we issued for $452. And again, we're in Canada, and we're dealing with what's known as a VAT, a value-added tax. We have HST in our country. So I could do a discount as a percent, or in this case, I can do a discount value. And if I do a discount value, watch very carefully what happens to my $52 HST. So I'm going to say I want to deduct $5, and I don't need to put a minus sign. I'm going to deduct $5 for the handling fee or the financing fee belonging to whoever cleared the receivable for us. The moment I tab out, boom, my HST changes. Now, why is that? The reason for that is, let's say I wanted to give somebody a 10% discount, or I wanted to give them $100 off. Well, if it's a specific sales discount, then you can take that off of your HST. That's not a problem. So, if I was saying it's a percent and it's 10% coming off, well then, it's $400 less 40 is 360, and then 360 at 13%. Hey, beautiful. This makes sense. However, when it's a financing charge, you've got two options. One, you can do, let's make this 0 here. So we're back to our $400 and our $52. I can put in the $5, but then I'd have to remember that this is 52. I'd have to override it at 52 and then save the transaction at 447. Could be a little bit dangerous. If you're comfortable doing it that way, fine, no problem. However, if you're not comfortable, then let me show you another alternative. You could add another line item right here, and I didn't put it in there ahead of time. I don't think so. No, we don't have it. Okay, so we're going to add a new line item. And of course, you can go to product and service and add it beforehand, but we can always do it right from any invoice or whatever. We'll call it an item. We're going to call this discounts and clearing fees, or you can name it whatever makes sense to you. Okay, and then you can make an account specific for credit card fees, or you can have it dump into sales discounts. So for our purposes today, let's just have it dump into sales discounts. Also, I'm going to go into my sales tax box, and I'm going to say exempt as the arbitrary amount, because we don't want to deduct. We do not want to deduct from our sales tax. We're not allowed to deduct when it's just a finance charge. So I'm going to say save and close, and now every time I have these $5 discounts, I'll just go back into the person's invoice. I'll grab my discounts product, right, and I'll say PayPal clearing fee, just in case he goes back and sees a copy of this invoice again. And now down here on discount value, I didn't need to use a minus. I will need to use it here. So quantity 1 minus $5, and it's exempt. So I get to my 447, and I never had to remember, oh, this got changed or modified incorrectly. I'm not going to have to deal with CRA on an audit. So you can use it very well that way. I don't recommend sending a copy back to your client. I would just do a save and close. However, if you had done an email invoice out to them, next time they go into your system to review the invoice again, it will show the modification. But at least you put a definition. They understand that they didn't get a cheaper rate. It's us, right? It's us who got clipped for the PayPal. So I'm going to say save and close. And now I've got the 447, that is received, and I will deposit it to checking because it came through PayPal automatically, or it came through Stripe as an automatic deposit, and I will just go save and close. So that's that's handling discounts. I'm also going to show you real quick here on invoicing. This comes up frequently. I get asked this question from a number of our clients. Our company, Prevendel, is a management consulting company, and we do offer monthly flat fee bookkeeping services. We offer setup training. Whatever your needs are, feel free to give us a call. There's the 30-second plug. So moving on, deposits. Now, there's a lot of clients out there who refuse to pay HST on deposits. I know, I'm one of them. I hate to have to pay the HST on top of a deposit that somebody's asked for me. So let's just say, we're asking Adwin Co. for a deposit, and maybe we're not going to have the goods ready for them for 3 months or 4 months. We really don't want this sitting in sales anyway. So you could turn deposits on. I'm not a big fan of how deposits works in QBO. I rather take it from here as another option, where again, let's add a new one. We'll call it an item. We'll call this deposits. And let's say I'm doing a $10,000 job for them. Actually, we're going to have to open an account to put this in. I don't used to be able to. No, they're going to make me go back. Okay. Let me another reason to have multiple tiles in. So we're going to go over to chart of accounts over here because we need to add customer deposits. So we're going to say new, other liabilities, other current liabilities. Do we have one there for customer deposits? Well, trust accounts, sort of. Well, we'll call it a loan payable. And this is going to be customer deposits. Customer deposits, save and close. Why is it a liability? We owe them the money back if we don't close the deal, as it were. So we're going to add new item, deposit. I'm going to grab that account that we just set up. So even though it says income account, you can grab your entire GL from here, folks. So where are we? There we are. So customer deposits is where I want the deposit to sit. And I'm also going to say, hey, I'm never going to charge tax on this. I'm always going to keep it exempt. I can override that, but I want it to pop up as exempt for me. So deposits here, and I'm going to say this is a 50% deposit on XYZ order. And that order's for $10,000, so it's $5,000. We're not going to bother with class, and going to change this to exclusive of tax. It shouldn't be out of scope. It should be inclusive or exclusive, however you want to set it up. And I will set it up as exempt for my sales tax. So you can see that I'm only charging $5,000. Now, I'll save and close this. Fast forward 3 months. We're going to come back to Adam. Now we're invoicing him for the balance. So the way you would do this, and I guess we'll run it 1 month forward. And we'll say it was a catering job. So catering, food and beverage, it was $10,000 was the contract. And we're charging him HST. Now here is how I handle the deposit. And I say less 50% deposit charged on our invoice number, whatever it was. Well, it was the last one I worked on, so it had to be that. I'm now going to say minus $5,000 that I already took from him and got paid. I will check these things out, obviously, before I invoice. I'll have a file on them. But take a look at how the invoice turns out. I've got $10,000 plus HST on the full $10,000, and I've gotten rid of the $5,000 deposit that they provided me. The important thing is that this month I'm showing $10,000 of sales, and my cost to perform that project will show up in cost of goods sold in the correct month. So this is a real nifty way of handling your deposits. And of course, deposit shows up on your balance sheet, not on your income statement, until you clear it out afterwards. So handy little device. A lot of our clients are using it now, so I thought I'd jump in and show that too. Just taking a look at the time here, making sure we're okay. Where are we? Next question that we received was, I made US dollar deposits for overseas purchased and pay 50% prior to departure, then wait 45 days till the goods arrive, and I bill them to the client. I don't want to show purchased cost of goods sold until same month as I invoice out. Okay, well, that's sort of the opposite of what we just did. We were charging a deposit to a client, and now we need to show a deposit for ourselves to, we could use prepaid expense. I prefer to use an account called deposit on account. So let me just go here for current assets. Do I have something here for deposits? We'll call it prepaid as well, but for our purposes, it is deposit on account. So for those of you who are working overseas or importing overseas or importing from the U.S. or maybe having to wait several months for an order to come back in, this is a way of handling it on your books. And as you can see, I'm jumping between toggles. I'm still working in the same company. I'm just toggling back and forth up here to save myself time on navigation. So we now have the place where we're going to set up our item. Now we don't want to use we're going to have to make up an expense or a check. So whether you're paying by credit card, you go to expense. If you're paying by check, let's say you're sending a wire transfer. And I don't know, let's make up some numbers here. Let's say we're buying goods for $5,000, and they want $2,000 down and $3,000 in 30 days. So we need a supplier, and now they're called vendors. Depends on the version that you're using. But let's just say it's Cass Hayden. Cass Hayden is overseas. Forget the address here. Cass Hayden's overseas. And as we move forward with the check and the wire transfer, we're going to backdate this to, let's say we did it on August 5th, and we're going to overwrite the check number and call it a wire. Okay, and the account we're going to use is the one we just set up. That's deposit on account, and that's what 2000 on 5 is 40%. So 40% deposit on our PO number 1234. I'm going to get rid of this, here's something that's nifty. Hadn't mentioned it earlier. You can do Control Delete. Remember, on the desktop versions, Control Delete exits the whole line. Not on the online version. The online version, Control Delete, acts like we're working in Excel or anything else. Hallelujah, they fixed it. So that's really great. Also, if I had to do a calculation, let's say I remembered it was 40%, but I could actually go plus 5,000 multiplied by 0.4 for 40% and tab out, and there's my amount. So in the cells where you see numbers, and this is anywhere, invoicing, checking, billing, you can do all your basic calculator functions, right? Plus, minus, division, multiplication. So if you have to do a long tape of items, you don't need to work with a calculator. You can do it right in the cell. But when you go back into the cell, you will not see, like, there's no pop-up box to show what your equation was. So you get what you get. And let's assume this person's offshore, so they're going to be exempt from sales tax. And we're going to go ahead now. We've done the deposit on account. And we're going to go, save and close. So now I didn't have time to set up a purchase order and do a receiving from that company. But if I did do the purchase order and I did the receipt and I paid for the full amount, I'd still have this deposit that's sitting here, and we'd have a foreign exchange. So I didn't have time to set up all of that for you guys today. But again, if we were doing a receiving, right, where we get a bill in, and by putting in the bill, once I called up the company, you would see down this side, you are going to see the purchase order. You're going to bring the purchase order in with the items required. The items are going to show up down here. You're going to go ahead and do a receiving. Then that bill is going to be in your system. You're going to go here and you're going to say, I want to pay that bill now. And the bill is going to show up for, under that person's name. You're going to pay it in full. However, if I pay it in full out of the bank, wait a minute, I've already made the payments for the bank. So what do I do now? That's the question. And the way we recommend handling it is, again, let's go back to our chart of accounts. We're going to open a new bank. And come here. Okay, this one's got corrupted along the way, so I'm just going to take the transaction here. Let's go back to chart of accounts and hit new. It's working again. Phew, panic. Okay, bank. In this case, we'll call it a checking account. Doesn't really matter. I call this clearing bank, and I make a note, must equal 0. And that's just a reminder that at any time, if this account doesn't equal 0, I screwed up, and I go back and I have to fix it. So I always keep an eye on that account whenever I'm running any reports or anything. So clearing a bank must equal 0. So let's go back to pay bills. So if this was one of the ones that I needed to clear, where I've already paid Jennifer the $226, I sent her a full deposit, or I made 2 deposits on account with her, I don't owe her the $226 anymore. But I had to receive the goods in so that I could ship them out and invoice them, because I want my cost of goods sold, my invoicing, to be in the appropriate month. So the way I manage this is I go ahead and I say, yeah, you know what? I am paying this because I've paid it already. It's $226. But I'm paying it to my clearing bank, which must equal 0. So I'm going to say save and close. And now I've got $226 that doesn't belong in my clearing bank account. So what am I going to do? Well, this is a two-step process that we can't get away from. I go to my journal entry on the same day that I did my clearing, and I'm going to call up the clearing bank. Here it is. And I know I paid $226, so if I paid $226, it has to be a credit. So to get rid of it, I'm going to have to debit it. And I'm going to say clearing sub AP to deposit on account. 5 or 15? 15 minutes left. Thanks for just getting a heads up. Okay. To deposit, so clearing sub AP to deposit on account. And I'm going to go deposit on account. It's going to credit the 226 because I would have debited this account 226 along the way. So that's how I manage my deposit on account, and I clear it out against the clearing account, and I reset this guy to 0, and this one's going to come out. If there was foreign exchange involved, longer phone call, but basically you would have to be looking at your gain on foreign exchange, your clearing back and forth. I could set up that model, and I might actually put a video on YouTube on how to handle it from start to finish. It's a big, pithy effort, but it really, if you're faced with that, you can certainly call us, or you can look for something to pop up on the account. But foreign exchange it's a little more of a handful. But you get the genesis of the idea here on how to get your clearing account into play and use your deposit on account. Now, assuming that 226 was there at the end of each month, if you're doing a lot of these deposits, I certainly recommend going to the reconcile function, which is again rotary wheel down to reconcile. Reconcile is not just for bank accounts and credit cards anymore. You can do reconciliation on any account. So if I want to go to my deposit on account and I want to hit reconcile, I will always begin with 0 and I'll always end with 0 because I'm trying to offset them. So let's say I'm at the end of September, it'll always be 0, 0. Anytime I'm doing a clearance, it'll always be beginning and ending with 0, and it'll show me both sides. Now, again, I had given you the hypothesis that the 226 was also something we had prepaid. So it would show up here, and I would check that, and I would check this, and then I'd be back to 0, and I'd hit finish now, and I would have check marks and clearances, within the account. So anytime I go into deposit on account, I could see that. You know what? Just for the heck of it, why don't we do it? So this was September 30th. Why don't we just say that on August 15th? Who was that? On August 15th, we got to drill down here and find it again. It won't matter. Okay, we're going to go to check. I think it was, no, it was yeah, let's use Brittany. I think that's who it was, but make this August 15th. And we'll say it was a wire transfer, and we'll say it was a deposit on the account, and we'll say it was for $226. And any deposit will always be exempt because you only want to deal with the tax at the time that you're dealing with the tax. So always make it exempt, save and close. So now I would see the two matchups of 226. I would check them both off against one another. I am balanced, so I will hit finish now. And if I had, a whole whack of deposits on account, the advantage now is if I go to reports, I always like using the trial balance myself, but whatever you like. Let's use this year to date. We'll update it. We'll go to deposits on account, and I'm going to click drill down into deposits on account, and I'm going to see a reconciliation. I can customize this report if I want to if I want to customize the report. So I can come in here and I can make different selections along the way and actually ferret out what has been reconciled. Another, I guess, a better, clearer example of how to use customization. Let me just go to that quickly. We're going to go back to reports. It's easier to see on a sales report. Where are we time-wise? Thank you. All reports, review sales. So let's take a look at sales by customer. And let's take a look at this fiscal year, this year to date. You'll see things like this from time to time in reports. Let's say you have, you're using job costing or you've created sub-accounts. If you've created sub-accounts, you're going to see this tab called Collapse. If I hit Collapse, watch what happens right here. So keep your eyes peeled here. I'm going to hit Collapse. And boom, all I get is the top number for Oxen. If I want to see the breakdown again, I can just hit Expand. So that's what Collapse and Expand does for you. That's its purpose. But also I can take care of it in customization. I can go into Customize, and let's say I've got one of the things that QBO doesn't handle is commission. You can certainly create a custom box on each of your invoices and put who the sales agent is, but you cannot program in the commission rate. And many companies I know and I always recommend don't pay commission until you as a company have been paid for the order. So how would I do that? Well, I'm always going to set it up on an accrual basis. So one thing is, you know what, I don't want to look at Expand, I want to see it collapsed. The other thing is, if I'm looking for all my sales year to date, based on people who have already paid me, instead of accrual, I'm going to say show it to me on a cash basis. Now I'm going to hit Run Report. And now you can see I dropped from like 62,000 down to 58. This represents everybody who's paid us so far year to date. That's what I'm going to base my commissions on. Now, if I want to save this report look so that I don't have to keep customizing each time I want to run the report, I can just save this customization. And I'm going to share this with all the company users. And I know what this means to me specifically. It means, let's call it commission sales report. So I'm gonna call it that, and I'm gonna say OK. And now when I come back into reports, this tab right here, my custom reports, my report that I just saved is there. And I can run that report now at any time, and it comes up precisely the way I want it. It's memorized the customization I've done. I've given it a name. And again, even though I brought it up, if I didn't want to see this year to date, if I just wanted to see this quarter to date, you know, I can just work off of that and, you know, and come here. Or I could create a report that's quarter to date all the time and save that. So customization is a real fun tool. I mean, play with it. Don't worry, you're not going to break anything. You don't have to save it. You can go into all sorts of different reports and you can ferret out information. You know, a lot of folks have no idea just how powerful QBO is. So, you know, you get about 40 or 45 I think you get 40 canned reports on the essentials, and you get 60 canned reports on the pro or plus level. Pardon me, that's my desktop jargon getting back in there again. So the plus one will give you 60 canned reports, but if they don't do it for you, you can manipulate till the cows come home and create whatever report is meaningful for you as a business. Is there any other questions out there? Just we're coming to the end of time. If you want to get them in quick, and let's see if we can address them. How much time do we have? I don't know if I've got time to do 6. Yeah, if we have one more question out there, great. If not, let me see if I can handle this one. Sometimes importing of data. Okay. This is a big one. All right. Sometimes importing of data, which is vendor bills, occurs after I pay as an expense via credit card or via the bank. Now I have a duplicate expense in the vendor. If I've already done a reconciliation on the bank or the credit card, how can I fix this without undoing my reconciliation and canceling the payment and then paying the bill as it was intended? Yee. Left that one right to the end. Okay, here we go. If you're using apps out there, let's say you've turned PayPal on and you're getting an automatic data dump from PayPal, or let's say you're using a product out there, an app like HubDoc, and HubDoc is firing in your invoices for your vendor bills automatically. Let's go back to home. What can happen is it's a timing issue, and this can cause some frustration. But let's say we're paying a certain bill. Let's say we're paying Supplies Depot here. We're paying Supplies Depot by credit card, and we're waiting for the bill to come in. But if I go ahead and I receive this Supplies Depot, let's open it up, and I see Supplies Depot, I bought supplies that had HST. Right now it's set up as an expense, right? I can ask it to find the match, but you know what? That's everything that's in the account, so there's no match to be found. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add, well, I won't add it just yet, because if there was a bill, and if I enter that bill right now for, what are we talking about here? $18.60. So if I go ahead and I enter a bill for Supplies Depot, if that bill comes in, I think it was closer to September, but even let's say September 3rd, for supplies, and it was, we'll call it inclusive of tax, and we'll say the whole thing was $18.60. When you use inclusive of tax, it's the total, and then it breaks it out for you, in case you were wondering what inclusive versus exclusive of tax was all about. It is different. Make sure you know what you're using and you have it programmed correctly. So now I go save and close. So let's just assume that one that I sent was thrown over. Okay. If I go ahead and add this as a payment, which was July 19th, I'm going to go ahead and add that now as a payment. Now we're going to go to the supplier, and that was our friendly supplies company. There it is, Supplies Depot. Our Supplies Depot, and I set one up earlier because I did see this question come across. Okay, I can now see I've got bills and I've got expenses. And the problem that I have with bills and expenses is I have duplications. If I knew that I was going to receive the expense, I don't want the bill. So I've got two choices. I can cancel the bill and delete it as though it was never there because I really already paid it direct, and that solves my problem. However, just to add, more to the equation, if it came through HubDoc or PayPal automatically and I had an attachment, then I'm not going to want to lose that attachment. So what I can do is I can go back into the expense that bill was for. I can look at the bill and say, you know what, I don't want this to be an expense anymore. I want this to be a bill payment. So I'm just going to add the bill automatically. My expense automatically changed to bill payment. I hit save and close, and I'm a hero. Because now I've got bill and I've got bill payment and the expense disappeared. But it doesn't bugger up my reconciliation that I may have already done on my credit card. So that would be the way to address it. Really quick, folks, before I lose you, this is a search function, and this guy here is like the last 10 transactions you did. These two don't show up anymore on your system, whether you're doing invoices, whether you're doing bills, no matter what you're in. Anytime you see that, you can click on it. It'll show you all your recent invoices. You hit more, it'll give you a whole list. Right. The other places you will see is this search, and it's usually a little one over here. You go to advanced search, and advanced search at any time you can look up in so many different ways. There's really just a ton of ways to find things in your system. Do we have a minute? We don't? My contact information. We don't have a minute. I'm being waved off here. I do apologize for that. I'll put the contact information back up again for you. Again, cell number's there, the email's there. If you have a question that we didn't cover or you get stuck on something, we don't mind answering things, by email. It's fine. We're happy to be of assistance. And again, if you're looking for some support on, on bookkeeping or management consulting, please have a look at our website. It's www.prevendel.com. It's right there. You can take a look at the different services that we provide, and we're happy to be of support. I'm going to throw it back over now to our invigilators. Let me just get back to Google Hangouts and unshare the screen, and we are back to Rochelle at Startup Canada. We can't hear you, Rochelle. Are you still muted? Uh-oh. Can't hear you. Your showing is muted. There you go.
I'm back.
You're
I was
back.
just saying thank you. So on behalf of Startup Canada and Intuit Canada, thank you for attending the QuickBooks Crash Course Troubleshooting. If you still have questions or want to learn more about QuickBooks Online, be sure to join us tomorrow evening for Part 2 QuickBooks Troubleshooting. This will be a 60-minute session dedicated to solving any problems or questions you have about QuickBooks. To receive your 50% off promo code for QuickBooks Online, be sure you have registered on the Eventbrite link in the description of the video. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow at 12 p.m. For an Accelerate Startup Finance Bootcamp, the third part to our Startup Finance Week online series. Find out about funding opportunities in Canada and how you can manage your finances while decreasing the taxes your business pays. The link to register for this can also be found in the description of this YouTube video. If you still have questions about QuickBooks Online, you can reach out to Nevin and Elizabeth at prevendel@simpatico.ca. So that's prevendel@simpatico.ca. Another big thank you to Nevin and Elizabeth for volunteering their time to facilitate this session today. We truly appreciate it. Have an enterprising day, everybody. Goodbye. Thanks, Dad.